there, I'm Scott, the winemaking guy, and I'd love to welcome you to episode number 5 of Help Your Winemaking, the video podcast that helps people like you improve your winemaking savvy so you can make great tasting homemade wine. Now, before we get started here, I just want to give you a quick update on the boss, which is, of course, my wife, Michelle. If you were listening in on episode 4, you would have heard that she unfortunately had to spend 4 days in the hospital due to a life-threatening situation. She's pulled through and, in fact, is in the process of flying to Las Vegas with her sister to definitely have some R&R and she absolutely deserves it. But thank you to everyone who passed on their well wishes, and just wanted to give you guys an update. So she's doing fine, and will meet a full recovery. Alright, so on today's show, I have a unique add-on for your kitchen. Good question for all you fruit winemakers. Can you add too much fruit to your wine? And finally, 2 ways to gussy up your wine bottles. So let's get started here. So a unique add-on for your kitchen. Now, this comes from my brother-in-law, Sean. So this is us in the ocean and out east a couple summers ago, and my niece, Hannah. Anyway, so when I saw him a couple weeks ago, he showed me this email with these pictures, and I absolutely had... As soon as I saw it, I said, I have to show my winemaking people this. So it consists of a trap door, basically, in your kitchen, which lifts up. And I would never have guessed this. It's a wine cellar. Could you imagine this in your kitchen? How cool is this? So it pops open, and you just walk down this winding stairs, and there you go. You have all of your wine at your fingertips. So it blew me away. I don't think we're ready to put this into our kitchen because it would impact our basement, but hey, if this is something that you guys are interested in doing for your own place or have something similar or even cool, please let me know. Email your pictures and tell me all about it. I'd love to pass this on to everyone else because this is just so cool. Alright, so question for everyone: can you add too much fruit to your wine? Well, here's a question that Marshall Songson actually asked me. And he said, can I safely add more fruit to a recipe than called for? Or should I factor up all the ingredients based on the pounds of fruit I have? So, for example, if the recipe calls for 10 pounds and I use 15, should I use 1.5 times the amount of all the other ingredients, including water? Great question, Marshall. Well, what I did was I talked to Dominic Rivard, who you've probably heard of before. He's my commercial fruit winemaker friend, and to see what he says. And he said, absolutely you can. But here's some things to note. First, it makes the wine stronger in flavor, as well as it adds more acidity, which makes sense. So you'd want to make the wine sweeter to balance the finish. And this is definitely a good idea if you want to make a dessert wine. He also says if the start volume is the same, no need to add more ingredients. But it's also a good idea to add less sugar and acid just to balance things out. Now, the alternative, of course, is just to make a bigger batch by just increasing ingredients in proportion to the amount of fruit, which is, of course, what Marshall was wondering. Now, finally, just experiment with it. That's the nice thing about winemaking is, hey, it's a hobby. Why not experiment and see what you can come up with? So if this is something that interests you or you've even done in the past, I'd love to hear from you. So respond to the email or the emails that I send to you, and I'd love to hear what you do. There you go. Okay, so finally, let's spend the rest of the time today talking about 2 ways to gussy up your wine bottles, and of course, this covers shrinks and labels. Now, shrinks are also known as capsules or sleeves, and you can see them here. This is in our basement during a bottling session with my friend Mark, and we had some wine. We're trying some of the wine that we were bottling here, which was I believe this was the Wine Expert's Stag's Leap Merlot, if I remember correctly. Anyways, it was a great tasting wine, and so we've got all our shrinks lined up here, and you just take them and slip them over the neck of your bottle. And in order to shrink them, you need heat. So 2 options, of course, would be blow dryer or boiling water. And I will freely admit that boiling water is my preferred method just because it's really simple to do. The cost is minimal, less than $5 for 30 of these shrinks. Now, of course, it's more for show than anything else. It doesn't really, sure, it might protect your cork from damage, but it doesn't keep the humidity or keep them moist. It's, again, just for show. So here is how you do it. Basically, you have a boiling pot of water, and you want to make sure it's deep enough so you can submerge the neck of your bottle at least past here. And you want to make sure that the water is a rolling boil. What I do before I tip the bottle over is I stick a knife, like a butter knife, on the end to keep the shrink from falling off, and then you just dip the bottle into the boiling water, and within seconds it shrinks it. And again, you want to make sure that this water is hot. We made the mistake before of not having it hot, and it just took its time, and you don't want that. You just want to get it in and out quickly. So rolling boil, and away you go. Okay, so let's talk about wine labels. Now, if you've seen some of the other episodes, you'll have seen this gentleman before. This is the Pirate, also known as Bobster, and we pass emails on a weekly basis. He's a great guy, and I've really enjoyed getting to know him. And the reason why I pay attention to him is because he works at the Beer and Winemakers Pantry in Pinellas Park, Florida, which is outside of Tampa Bay. And so if you're in the area, I absolutely recommend dropping by. If you do see the Pirate, tell him that the Winemaking Guy sent you. And you can also visit their website, beerandwinemaking.com. And now he's told me he's made over 2,000 batches of wine from kits. So he absolutely knows his stuff, and he also runs a winemaking class at the shop as well. So definitely somebody I pay attention to. And he passed on this really great tip to me on how to make sure that your wine labels line up consistently. Now, of course, wine labels, and I'll tell you shortly where you can get them, but mainly they're easy to do, and some of them come gummy, like some stamps where you just peel the back off and it has glue already, or you have to wet them and put them on, and they're usually easy to come off in water. Oh, and also Bobster mentioned that he uses a glue stick to put them on, which is interesting as well. So he just uses Microsoft Publisher, grabs some graphics online, prints them off, and then puts them on. And the way he lines things up is he takes his board. It looks like actually some border for your windows, and he just puts a towel down, then clamps her down, and then puts a piece of paper with a mark beside it. And that way, as he's doing the production of putting the bottles through, he can just make sure that all the labels line up properly, and ultimately they're consistent. So they look really, really nice. So as you can see here, Bobster, aka the Pirate, is a big fan of soccer or football for my friends overseas, and so you can find actually some of his labels at the local pub, he tells me. So there you go, a great tip for everyone who'd like to line up their labels nicely. Now, some of the sources of labels, of course, if you're a wine kit maker, most wine kit manufacturers have labels that go specifically with the kit, and some of them are included with the kit, or you can go to your local winemaking supply store and buy them there or online. They also have some websites like Stony Creek Wine Press or StickyBusiness.com, or also Fourth and Vine Labels, where you can make your own wine labels. You upload pictures, make your own labels, they'll print them and mail them to you. That seems to be a little bit more expensive, but probably a good idea if you're going to have wine at, say, a big event like a wedding and you want to customize your labels. And then, of course, Avery, the label makers, have some labels that you can use to make your wine as well. So I'm going to have these links to all these websites included in the blog, so you'll be able to get them there. And I'll also have the main place you can go, apart from where you see this video, is thewinemaking.com/resources, and there'll be links there. Alright, so of course, if you have any tips or comments to share, please email them to me at tips@helpmywinemaking.com, or conversely, you can just reply to any email you receive from me and leave them there, or even on the blog. I always like to hear from you guys. Alright, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for taking the time to listen, as always. Hope you'll have learned something new. To get more wine-making tips, I invite you to find me on Twitter and Facebook, where my profile name is Winemaking Guy, or on my blog, thewinemaking.com, where you can sign up for my free 5-part winemaking course if you haven't already, and you can certainly subscribe to this podcast via iTunes. So join me next week, where we'll be discussing easy ways to keep track of your winemaking. Bye for now.